the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, the Army, and the Coast Guard. Men and women who have sacrificed so much and who have gotten so little in return. When I first started this documentary, my ultimate goal was to talk to veterans about benefits that they had not been receiving. But whether it was due to government conspiracies, not wanting to relive the hell they had been through, or not understanding what the documentary was truly about. But whatever the case was, after months of searching, I could not find one that wanted to tell their story. I had almost given up hope until I came across one man. A man that not only was willing to tell his story, but needed to tell his story. A story that, if I had not heard from his own lips, I would not have believed. Frank Gann, he's a man that wants to live his life, but because of things he has been through and the help he is not getting, he cannot live it the way he wants. Frank's just a man that wants his story out there. And me, I'm a man that thinks his story needs to be out there, but I'm not the one that's going to tell it. To honor and respect the man, I think we should let him tell it. The Frank Gann Story.
What's your name and give us a little information about yourself?
Okay. My name is Frank Gann. I grew up in a military family. We traveled from Alaska to Hawaii and Portugal, all over the place. I was raised basically to go in the service with, like my father and my brothers and the rest of my family were all related in some way with military service. But my growing up was kind of different. I enjoyed it as a military brat. And I had certain expectations about the military and what it was going to be for me in the future. We had a great family life. The Air Force was a great way to grow up. But that's kind of where I got started. I ended up being a musician when I decided to go in the Army because it wouldn't make no money.
Frank seems like a pretty nice guy, but there's a lot more heaviness to this story. To be fair to him, I think we need to start at the beginning.
Well, it started out, being a musician, I didn't know what I wanted to do, so they offered me a chance to drive yachts in Bremerhaven, Germany. So I thought, well, that'd be cool, and embassy service and all that stuff, Got there and all the boats were dry docked and there weren't any work to do, so they put me in transportation. Now that meant the 106 trucking company, and of course I wasn't licensed to drive a truck, so I changed semi-tires for a long time. And that was my first portion of the service. It messed up my wrist. There's more to all that, but I re-enlisted as a veterinarian technician, thinking, I'm going to go to a clinic somewhere, or I'm going to have a dog in Vietnam, or I got sent to Walter Reed for training. It all changed from there for me.
Walter Reed, founded in 1909, it has had its own shadowy past, but we are not here to talk about that.
How long were you in service?
About 6.5 years total.
What kind of places did you go see?
Well, I was stationed in Rüsselsheim, Germany to start with, and from there I would go to Portugal and other places on my time off. Or, I got an opportunity to travel above and beyond what my family had done. So for me it was a lot of fun and I enjoyed it. And my expectations was that was going to be my lifetime career. That I was, raised to be that way, and I was definitely in that mood,
Yeah.
So, but I enjoyed going.
Mr. Gann has done like many others and followed in the footsteps of his family. by joining the armed services. He has gotten to travel the world and gotten to see things that most of us will never get to see, and some things we may never want to see. But I get ahead of myself. Just in my short time that I got to spend with Frank, he's a genuine, down-to-earth man. A man who cares very much about his family and friends, and who just loves life in particular. I could talk about how great of a man Frank is, but that is not why we are here. We are here to hear him speak about his hardships and why he has had to endure these hardships. So I guess the only thing left for me to do is start asking the more hardcore questions and let him tell the story that has long been needing to be told.
What changed?
Well, geez, that gets into the story. When I finished my training as a veterinarian technician at Walter Reed, which is part of the Forest Glen, Aberdeen Proving Grounds, it's all that research triangle. They sent me to a place called Fort Detrick in Frederick, Maryland, to an organization called USAMRIID. It stands for the United States Army Research Institute of Infectious Diseases. Now, as a veterinarian technician, I handled their monkeys, their donkeys, their horses, their rabbits, their rats, their guinea pigs, their ferrets, their whatever animals we had. We had large colonies. And everything went fine for a long time. It was near the end of my service tenure when something happened with the natural wildlife kill-off on that base, and that base is very sensitive. Aberdeen was in trouble for misusing beagles, clipping their vocal cords in research facilities. There were some other things that went on, and I ended up, I guess you might say, to get rid of me. So I didn't have a lot of testimony about all the animals that were lost on that base. I ended up going to Johnson's Island.
After the initial interview, Frank was willing to elaborate more on the incident, and we were lucky enough to film it.
I guess you can film this too if you want. I was in charge of the standard blood animals, which meant animals that weren't infected. So they had a little farm. It was a plantation, old plantation farm on the base, right across from the East Coast Communications Center. The president used to go in and out, and a lot of communications goes through that. Plus, it's right there on the sensitive base. Because it was standard animals, all clean animals, they used that area there. It used to be a plantation home. They had a big barn, lots of animals, sheep and ducks and goats and, horses, all of the above. Then we had a big pond with weeping willow trees, and the Rod and Gun Club used it for stocking fish, and they had fishing contests and barbecues. It was the place to play on the base, so to speak. And that was my charge right there near the end. A colonel come in and said, I want to knock out the end of the pond and reline it. I told him that there were a lot of geese and Canadian geese and other animals that were molting, and they wouldn't be able to get away. It would be a very unsafe thing to do for those animals. If you could wait a little while, it would be better. He knocked the end out of the pond on Saturday morning. By the time I got back in Monday, botulism had set into the pond. We lost 56 Canadian ringneck geese. There were animals laying everywhere. Dead turtles, muskrat, mink, raccoons, and everything that went into the muck to try to get fish and things that were out there, they were soiled too, so they would end up dying from the botulism. Plus it was running under the fence and into the community. So some of my friends from pathology came down, some pictures were taken, military police showed up, took their cameras from them, and within 3 weeks I had orders for Johnson's Island. That's where they took Hitler's unknown biological and radioactive stuff, put it on the island. They say you can have, or at that time, it's been cleaned up since, but they say you can have birth defects after 24 hours being on the island.
So it basically seems like this country has died.
Well, not so much to die, but now I was going to be a guinea pig. I was supposed to take rabbits and food and water to the flags on the island where these agents were buried and see how long it takes the rabbit to die. Well, he's got food and water. So if I'm going out there every day, he's getting it every day. But we ended up getting in contact with the White House, the Red Cross, the Department of the Army. They ended up sending me right back there. Apparently the bet was lost. The colonel had to retire, the sergeant major had to retire, and I was out of the Army in 13 days after I talked to the Inspector General. That's what really started all this, or I'd still been.
We later found out that Frank cost a lot more than what he speaks about in this documentary. However, to respect him, we're not going to go into it. We're just going to let him finish the story.
After that time that some of the problems began. Well, I guess that's when they began, but they didn't manifest themselves until I became a resident here on the coast.
Yeah. Would you like to elaborate on some of that stuff, or?
Well, I can to an extent. I'm a little leery. You know, mine's a little different. You know, if I'd shot myself in the foot, it would have been all different. They'd have actually covered me for things. But I was involved in a situation. One of Fort Detrick's main goals is research for the soldier. If you take a soldier and you run him out to every country in the world and putting under every environment he has to go to, you have to consider what diseases he confronts. And what the study I was involved in, it was a research project to find out what happens to that soldier when they've been injected pretty much everything, you know, that they might have become involved with. And what's the overall lifespan problems with that. So I was injected with several biological agents, experimental agents. Yeah, these products were approved by the Department of the Army Investigational Drug Review Board, but not approved by the Commissioner for Food and Drugs. In other words, it's an experimental product. And it states so in some of these, and as you can see it says, consent to inoculation with experimental biological products. And in that list is Venezuelan equine encephalomyelitis, a live vaccine, live tularemia vaccine, anthrax vaccine, botulism toxoid, tularemia again, another one, Swift Valley fever, Q fever, eastern equine encephalitis, and western equine encephalitis. There was also, and here's some of the inoculation periods, times. There was also yellow fever that was involved in that, and there's a rabies vaccine involved in that as well. So all these records are here, plus we have all the blood records, where after you inoculated and the inoculation, the actual batch numbers of what they used, I have all that and how it proceeded in my bloodstream. So if you take my blood right now, I have the blood titers. Some of the instances happen like that animal kill-off, and I left the military looked at my records. And between my overexposure to radiation, animal bites from infected animals, they claim none of them were, but there were so many, and then accidental stickings with needles, and you know, with some of the agents we use, the sputum, the other stuff that you get when you're dissecting animals, and I did quite a bit of that with the monkeys. Plus they splatter you with stuff when you're feeding them. I mean, you're just in a constant barrage of exudate and other things from these animals. So when I left, Forrest Glenn, Walter Reed, the Department of Defense. They looked at my records, and I understand it took 13 doctors on the board at NIH, and they awarded me an Agent Orange Category A3, which for 17 plus years, whenever I had a problem, including like when I was in Fayetteville, I have primate sinus infections, I have all the hepatitis that you can get, I've had through primates and others. When I got care, I just went in. There's two types of Agent Orange benefits. And I was on the one that really it's up to Congress what they can afford, not to how much I make. So for 17 and a half years, I had full benefits. And then I went into Biloxi, VA, and a clerk there looked at my records and said, "What years were you in Vietnam?" And I said, "Well, I wasn't in Vietnam." He said, "Well, then you can't have these benefits," and he canceled my benefits.
All because of one clerk at this facility. They should be fired over that. But that's just my opinion.
Right there on the spot. I was sitting there with migraine. I didn't know what to do, plus you can't get radical with those people or anything. So I went home, and it's been years now. Senator Wicker's tried to help me with it. And ultimately what happened there, you know, unlike my hip and my wrist that are normal things you could claim in the military, they deny those two. I've got all the records for them. But I think everything is getting denied because of all this Agent Orange stuff and the tularemia, things that they weren't supposed to be messing with, and my exposures. I think they'd like to keep me out as much as they can. In fact, the visit I had with my last VA representative, she looked at everything, and I mean took her time. I went away and let her look. Between my personal records, the VA records showing what's been done, her suggestion was that I sue the government, that I don't try to claim again because somebody's there stopping me. And that seems to be obvious. Senator Wicker had a problem with his offices, sending him to VA, and all of a sudden they disappear, and you do it again, and they disappear, and this file's not being put in there. It's on top of it, but they won't put it in, and they have to be forced to. There's a lot of things involved in this. But for me, I mean, I grew up as a kid, and my whole desire was to serve our country and be part of that system. That's what I grew up with. And when I left, I had no idea what my life was going to bring, and it really didn't turn out that good. I still have problems. I've got hip problems now from an accident while I was active duty. They would tell me I didn't sign the right form or something. I don't know. I'm fixing to have it replaced on the 14th.
I caught up to Frank after his surgery, and he was willing to tell me a little bit more about his situation.
With this hip surgery, they replaced the whole thing, total hip, and that's really the government's to do. That's that one where I was hit while I was in the service, fully dressed in my uniform, regular Army, on duty, and they said I guess I didn't fill out the right form. So again, my wife has paid for the surgery, and we're going through it, years of messing with them, and it's obvious it's theirs, but they disclaimed everything anyway.
I have steel in my right knee. My right leg was impacted between a police car. I was in uniform, on duty. He pulled out in front of me. I couldn't do nothing. I was on a motorcycle. But then my wrist, that was damaged, done. That's funny too, because when I went in service, my first year, they blood tested me when you come into service. They said, well, you don't have RA factor, you know, they go through the blood test. I got to Germany, started doing those tires, and my wrist started breaking over. It was destroying my wrist. So went to the clinic, and a exchange doctor with the military saw me. And he claimed I had rheumatoid arthritis. Never took any blood tests, but that's what he claimed. And I'm still fighting that. Pensacola did testing. They're doctors, they're proven doctors, came back and said, no, that was a misdiagnosis. He should be covered for his carpal tunnel. Well, this has been going on for 20 years now. And finally, I had my own hands operated on. My wife, her insurance was able to do that. My wife and her insurance is taking care of my hip. My wife and her insurance is taking care of the brain tumor that I've acquired. There's several things that really, I can't go to the VA right now and get an aspirin. They said she makes too much money. I don't know what that has to do with my time in the military so far beyond when I met her. I mean, I tried to stay away from the VA just because it takes all day to do anything. Secondly, I lived in an area I couldn't get to it. Well, one of the things they said, oh, you never used this. Well, I lived down in the middle of the Ozarks, so I had to drive all the way to Fayetteville, Arkansas, or Muskogee, or St. Louis. And when you don't have any money and you can't do much, it's hard to go and afford to spend all day and take care of those things. But when I did, I tried. They proved I had carpal tunnel syndrome in both hands in Muskogee, and still denied it. That's when I found out in our last records they knew I had diabetes since 1985. Didn't tell me. And I didn't even know how it got on the claim. My VA rep did it. And he messed up that claim too. He said a cut on my wrist is why I was trying for carpal tunnel. It's just, it's several people that I know of who have veterans in their family. To be able to get the services needed from the VA, their spouse usually has to quit work and devote almost full time. The efforts that you have to put forward are ludicrous. And it's part of their efforts to reduce patient care. The more problem it is for you, the less you'll come. Which means their prices, their costs go down, because they're not having to service as many people. There'd be a lot of people out there that don't go because of the issues they get. And with myself being registered Agent Orange, I'll show you all the documents of the injections. I have the lot numbers, batch numbers of the experimental product, who made them, how much I was given. I can go all the way down through it. I have all the records. I didn't lose anything. But it seems like as soon as you start in that direction, I call them veterans adversary. That's all I can say about it. They really don't try to help you. It seems that the people there's some of them that really want to try to help you, but they don't want to go past their pay grade. In other words, they don't want to go across the hall and do something extra for you, typically, because they're getting their paycheck and going home. They're bureaucratic, just like the rest of the government. And unfortunately, the Veterans Administration doesn't have a way to fix something that's gone wrong. In this case, they don't know what a Category A3 is.
After a quick web search, it becomes very clear that they do not want anyone to know what a Category A3 is. Why? I do not know. I, however, do know it exists, for I have read the documents that Frank has, and it is very much real.
I'll let you take pictures of my materials and the cards and the issue dates and all, and the Department of Defense won't tell them what a Category A3 is. So they can't service me. I should have an automatic 30% disability for diabetes. I now have diabetes, never had that before, but that's all part of the Agent Orange. So I'm not getting care for that either. Now, how can I be registered Agent Orange? Well, like when I got out. I'm basically a dumb kid. I get out of the service. They issue me an Agent Orange Category A3. Their doctors at the NIH and Department of Defense decided this is what he needs to be on. So since I've spoken to the Army at Fort Detrick, they're furious, but they don't have any controls over the VA. VA doesn't know what it is, so they won't accept it. So that one clerk is what started. Here's the kicker to that. There's Agent Orange briefs. And if you look them up, that's created by the VA, Agent Orange D-2. States on the second page that when they created the new rules of 1996, I believe it was, that if you were on Agent Orange care, otherwise designated Agent Orange, and there's a lot of designations here because Canada's Mounted Patrol has been on Agent Orange because we use it on our borders. It's overseas, it's in islands and different places where we've used this prior to Vietnam. So they said, all right, if you were on it up until that time, your benefits are the same. From there on, you had to be boots on ground in Vietnam. Well, all of my stuff happened prior to that. This clerk didn't know it. He didn't know it, their own briefs. So when he canceled my benefits, it states, I'll give you those papers too. It states clearly I was supposed to be left alone, but I wasn't. Once he canceled them, I can't get it fixed.
After reading those documents, I can't understand how Frank or anyone else doesn't deserve those benefits.
What they call an impression is something they found wrong. And it starts off with the diabetes 2 and the pituitary adenoma. There's a list of it, goes down through here. End result, there's 45 items on the list, and VA denied every one of them. So, and that includes my hips, my knees, my wrists, everything. Doesn't include the Agent Orange and the injections. I'll get those for you, but here's the documentation for that. They're the progress notes from the Pensacola Naval Air Station. And they describe in the beginning of them my association with the animals, the exposures, the injections, and so on. So my diabetes is going. Everything else involved in it. I have arthritic conditions, I have other conditions, I think possibly even some memory and mental conditions at this point. And I'm blessed with a wonderful wife who helps me, but the government's not helping me. They are, and there's a lot of people furious over it, but you can't fix it. They don't have a way to fix it. Congress has to fix it, I guess. I don't know. But I've dealt with it for so many years. I'm ready to let people know. They do still experiment on their soldiers. I volunteered for that. I had a colonel on my back. So you ever want to get promoted, you're supposed to be a long-term guy. Your brother spent 3 tours in Vietnam. You're sitting here in a research facility. So yeah, I volunteered. I figured generally we did a good job and we made good vaccines and it was safe enough. But the study was lifelong and I'm having issues. And even my common things like my hip, my wrists and other things, they denied everything. Now, I don't know anybody else that's been in service 6+ years and has all the documentation for their exposures and animal bites and accidents, but I cannot get an aspirin. I was told last time I was in the VA I had no business there.
No business being there, after all he's been through. But sadly, there are many others that are in the same boat as him, going to their graves without seeing a single penny of benefits that they deserve.
So I love my country, and I watched my father, 28 years in the Air Force, in the last few years, just struggled and fought for his benefits, and they fought him all the way. My brother he was shot down 3 times. He was exposed. He spent time in the Marines, and he's one of those that don't have no problems. They don't have a problem caring for him at all. But it's the other people, some of the black sheep, that they want to shed. You know, and I feel like I'm one. I was experimented on. I had my accidents in the military, and I don't get anything from it. And when I went to Pensacola for their, quote, evaluation, Dr. Harvard, I shouldn't even say his name, but the doctor there, it's fine. It's going to be a record. He's one of their environmental specialists to debunk everything. He didn't debunk it, he proved it. They still denied it. And I have all those records, and I'm willing to put them all out now. So you'll be able to see what lot numbers of what agent I was injected with, how much of it, my blood results, the whole thing. I'm willing to divulge it all. The government hadn't helped me, and I spent years trying to go through Senator Wicker's office and others to keep this out of the public eye, but if they're still not willing to work with me, even as a research subject, I have certain rights, and I'm getting nothing. So my wife kind of supports me. We try to keep our studio up and going and growing, so maybe I'll have something when I get older. But as I'm getting older, it's painful. I don't know how to fix it. They won't. They won't help me either. Like I said, you don't have any business back here. It's nice to hear from the VA. We got 2 of them. And I know some other people. I mean, I look out there and I have a friend who didn't even spend 2 years and he's completely covered because he's broke. Well, I'm pretty much broke too, but my wife's not. But she wasn't around. She didn't commit to doing any of this. She didn't commit to any of it. You know, she met me when I was having problems. Fort Detrick sent me my stuff to help me. Stuff they shouldn't have sent anybody. But they sent it because they couldn't believe VA dropped my coverage. But there you are. And VA don't respond to you. Trust me. They don't. But life's good. We don't make it. I went, you know, I'm 62 years old. I went from growing up having the Donna Reed vision of the American family and the military and all that, and what you get when you work with them and what you get when you work with them is not what they tell you. It's like that first date in a bar and you wake up the next morning and you go, oh my God, let me cut my arm off. But you can't. You're in the military. So, you know, they've been very good to a lot of people, and then I'm sure you're going to have some viewers and people who realize I'm not the only one out here getting left alone. It's a sad feeling. Hey, baby. Sorry.
That's the only other thing to ask is, do you have any advice for anybody that's thinking about getting into like military and stuff?
Well, first of all, don't lose a single piece of paperwork. Get everything they promise you in writing. Seriously, get it in writing. Keep all of your paperwork when you get in on all your medicals. And if anything happens to you, get as much documentation as you can. I was told with my hip, I mean, I'm hit on duty, you know, in uniform. I'm a full-time Army person. You're supposed to be covered for everything. They said I didn't fill out the right form. What form? Nobody told me about any forms. If it's on your medical records, it's supposed to cover you. I don't know what to say. I'm tired of trying my best to be upright and proper and keep it out of the government's face, but I'm over it. Most people won't get injected with stuff they're not supposed to. I'm kind of a career case in that, you know. But I'm not alone. There was others in that group that I know of, and there was other groups. They've been injecting people and experimenting on Fort Detrick for a long time. They don't want people to know that, but they also go back into the 30s and dioxins and other, there's some stuff there. They like to keep it as clean as they can, but the fact is that's a biological and chemical warfare base, I'm sorry. And they work on some other stuff, but that's generally what they do. That's why they have the hot suites. That's infected suites. They get monkeys, I shouldn't even tell you that. They get monkeys in from all over the world. They have to sign them in because governments won't let so many of them go. But if you choose the one that already have the right diseases, they don't mind letting them go. Which means they're shipped straight to that facility, and I would receive them straight off a loading dock. And you get nice bites and rips and tears in your arms and hands and through your hands, and these things come straight out of the jungle. They're mature rhesus and spider monkeys and aodas and owls, and there's a bunch of different green monkeys, African greens. You get exposed to all their stuff. They poop on you, they pee on you, they spit on you, they bite you, they scratch you, and if you ain't affected by the time you put them in a cage, you're really, really lucky. And then do 50 of them. And come back to them every week, bleeding them. I was through a lot of exposure there. And I think the doctors gave me what I needed for medical care. And the clerk took it away. So I don't know. Every time I get involved in it, I start into depression. My wife would just leave alone. It's just too depressing.
Anyone would be depressed, especially after all that. Now, Frank does believe that the government is a little out of control, but he still loves his country. He still believes in what we fight for and what many have died for. So I had to ask him one final question. What advice would he give anyone who was trying to get into the military? And this was his final thoughts.
Somebody that's going into it maybe won't be quite so naive with them. You still want to support our government. You still want to support our military, and you want to do the right thing. But make sure you are doing the right thing, and that you're taken care of. In my case, I thought it was. And my whole family was behind me. They thought it was. There was some great accomplishments in Fort Detrick. I used to do surgeries and things. I was into animals very deeply. And the training was great and all, but it led to nothing. I had nothing when I got out. And I got out under those circumstances, which involved the White House, involved the Inspector General of the Army. It was a mess. And I have all that documentation. So I think that's where they're having their problems, is they can't get rid of my documentation. They just keep denying everything they can.
And also, you pretty much covered most of it.
Well, you asked me what I had a problem with the government with, and that's it. I believe in paying taxes. I believe in serving your country. I believe in all that. But when somebody says, "Hey, we're going to care for you," and they do, and a little glitch like that guy signing me out of the program, so to speak, makes such an impact on my life. It's not even believable. But of course, the end result is I feel like I've been left by the wayside.
Thank you a lot for telling us your story. It's a lot.
Well, if you have anybody giving you any issues over it, all the paperwork's here. You can look it over free time.
When I first started this documentary, my ultimate goal was to talked to veterans about benefits that they had not been receiving. But after months of searching, I could not find one. Then I met Frank Gann, a man that not only let me into his home, but let me into his life. Someone who just wanted to follow in his family's footsteps and serve his country. A man that I can truly call a friend. But Frank is just one of many out there. Veterans with different stories, but all with the same ending. Fighting for benefits that they well deserve. Now, I never meant to bash the government or to say that they were right or wrong. It was just to awaken the masses to what many of our veterans come home to and have to fight for long after the wars are over. There are ones that have died waiting for their benefits all the way back since World War I. They are the unsung heroes that we never get to hear about, but at least we get to say we tried to help. I think it's about time that we start to take a stand. For if we don't protect them, then who will protect us? I ask you this: what are we standing for?
Stand for the veterans involved. They trust in us when their backs against the wall. We gotta stand tall and show them the way. Unmovable objects, we move them anyway. Our brothers and sisters, we can't let them down. We all bleed red, a pauper to a crown. Break, no we can't, we just gonna bend and do what it takes to show we stand for them.
Walking school, jock sees a kid getting bullied. Friends say that's just a geek, forget little Lloyd. He could walk away or join in the laugh, but sees the gun, now you do the math. Walking through friends, he pulls them all away, not knowing the life he may have saved that day. Standing middle hall, he ignores a clinging bell. We're enemies, now friends, his message stands well.
What are we standing for? The veterans involved. They trust in us when their backs against the wall. We gotta stand tall and show them the way. Unmovable objects, we move them anyway. Our brothers and sisters, we can't let them down. We all bleed red, a pauper to a crown. Break, no we can't, we just gonna bend and do what it takes to show we stand for them.
Mission of war, she sees a family. Colonel says forget them, they're an enemy casualty. Get your head together, get it in the mission. Saving these lives is my only mission. Looking in the eyes, they're more than just tan. Never looking back as she falls from the van. One by one through hell they follow suit. Courage above bravery, now you just gotta salute.
What are we standing for? The veterans involved. They trust in us when their backs against the wall. We gotta stand tall and show them the way. Unmovable objects, we move them anyway. Our brothers and sisters, we can't let them down. We all bleed red, a pauper to a crown. Break, no we can't, we just gonna bend and do what it takes to show we stand for them.
We can go hella far if we come together. Just like McConaughey, we can become interstellar. Taking a universal stance, standing for the weak. Unlike the Titanic, we can fix this little leak. Dividing and conquering is for the little sheep. Time to wake up from this life, taking sleep. If you're with me, get out, come from your countries. Let's all shout out, let's X the boundaries. If we truly want to X the boundaries, then we have to come together as one. Because we are all one. Life is about helping each other, day by day. forth not. I ask you this.
What are we standing for? We let the innocent fall. They trust in us when their backs against the wall. We gotta stand tall and show them the way. Unmovable objects, we move them anyway. Our brothers and sisters, we can't let them down. We all bleed red, a pauper to a crown. Break, no we can't, we're just gonna bend and do what it takes to show we stand for them.